Hi everyone, it's Paul Cardin again, author of Return to Bomb Alley, The Falklands Deception. I want to talk today about one particular aspect of the sinking of the General Belgrano, which happened on the 2nd of May 1982. Now, this was a huge incident because it was the point at which there was no going back. It sank in for everybody who was down there that a war was now going to happen. 368 Argentine sailors eventually died due to the torpedoing of the ship. Now, there was a Peruvian peace plan, which I covered in the last video, which was the sort of last-ditch attempt to inject a bit of sanity into the situation and to give everybody a bit of pause for thought. But there are a lot of different factors at play here, one of which was Premier Margaret Thatcher's extremely threatened position. Back home, her own party colleagues, plenty of them, wanted her out, and there was a good chance that if she didn't play, probably the wrong word, but play this war correctly, she would be kicked out, and I think she felt that threat very keenly. So she's got that to think about, her political survival. But there were other matters of survival for us out there on both sides of this war. Actual survival. Admiral Woodward was the commander of the whole task force, the top man overseeing Operation Corporate, as it was called. And 10 years after the war, he wrote a book called 100 Days, and this described a threatening Pincer movement that was developing on the 1st of May. So in the south we had the General Belgrano. If you can imagine Pincer, my thumb is the General Belgrano, and in the north we had an Argentine aircraft carrier, the Vincento de Mayo, or the 25 de Mayo, and that was my forefinger in the Pincer. The Belgrano was 350 miles away from us, on the other side of the islands, on the southwest side of the islands, and we were on the northeast side of the islands. The Belgrano was built in. It was an American ship originally, the USS Phoenix. It was in Pearl Harbor. It was 40 years old. Some would say 40 years out of date. And you could argue that it was poorly armed in comparison to our modern ships, probably some of their own modern ships. But it did have 15 6-inch guns, 12 5-inch guns. It had CCAT CCAT anti-air missiles, and it had 2 helicopters. The problem was it would have needed to reduce its distance from us by 336 miles to become a threat. Because if it started firing those huge shells at us, they would land in the sea from its position 350 miles away. They would land in the sea 14 miles distant, so it's not really a threat. It doesn't matter which way it was travelling, it wasn't really a clear and present threat to us. As for the 25 de Mayo, that was a lot closer to us. That was up in the northwest, and it was about 150 miles away from us. It had 6 Argentine Skyhawks, or 8. I'm not really sure because there are differing versions. If you go to Wikipedia, they say 8. Other sources say 6 Skyhawks. And these had a battle radius of 700 miles, so they could fly 350 miles, drop their bombs, and come back 350 miles and land safely. So we were well within range of their bombs. But, and this is a very, very big but, on the 1st of May 1982, if I was to go leave my, main communications office, go up top and have a look at the sea, it was like a big blue billiard table. It was absolutely flat. So the wind speed on the Beaufort scale was about 0 that day. There was no wind at all, which is very unusual for the South Atlantic. Now this is crucial, absolutely crucial. The captain of the 25 de Mayo, to launch his aircraft effectively, needs a headwind to sail into. About a 345 ideally. If he's sailing into that, he's kind of doubling the speed, and as the planes take off, they're getting a good uplift under their wings. And when you think each one of them is carrying 400-500 pound bombs, that's an extra 2,000 pound of weight on each aircraft. If you'd have launched those aircraft on the 1st of May, they would have just dropped off the ramp and landed in the sea in those conditions. Now, Rear Admiral Woodward is obviously a very, very clever man. You've got to be to get to that sort of level in the Navy, Rear Admiral. But I think he may have made an error in his assessment of the threat on that day. In both cases, in the case of the Belgrano and the 25 de Mayo. And the problem we've had over the last 40 years is that increasingly the people who shout the loudest, the BBC, the mainstream media, British government, have been putting out their version of events, and it's now become settled. And there's been very few people who've been able to bring us the precise details of what went on that day. But as I said in one of my, I think in my first video, thanks to Boris Johnson and Chris Whitty locking me down in the house 3 times, I was given the opportunity to research all this. And I think as somebody who some of the major naval activity that went on down there. It's one of the major events. I think my perspective on this is worth listening to. And I've got to say, I go into a hell of a lot more detail in the book, which is called Return to Bomb Alley, The Falklands Deception. Thanks for watching.